But you know what? This brings up another interesting point about the whole concept between you and the universe. Now, the universe, and I get this question a lot via email. I've been praying to the universe for this, and I've been doing this, and, I'm waiting for the universe to give me a sign. The universe only gives you the contents of your consciousness 100% of the time. It's not acting independently.
Right.
It is photocopying you all the time. There is only you.
It doesn't have an opinion. It's just a factual reflection. Yes.
Yes. And this is the thing. And I think a lot of the hippies from the 70s, which is my generation.
Yeah, I'm pretty much there.
Yeah. I mean, I was born in the 60s, so I grew up kind of in the 70s. But that whole, universe and the spirituality being out there and all that stuff, and I'm waiting for the universe to give me, that's a statement from that crew.
Right.
And I used to say that too, because I thought that was correct. But now I understand it just goes ka-chung, ka-chung, photocopies your beliefs on money, relationships, love, how you feel about yourself, how you feel about other people, work, money, etc. And then it gives you evidence. It's not actually acting independently and rewarding you or withholding from you anything.
Right. By the way, you had another video where you did the photocopy, and you do the ka-chunk, ka-chunk. Love that. The sound effect is perfect. You got this, man. There's a second business for you right there, sound effects. You got this.
But it's that thing. Sometimes if you bring it into really basic visuals, because I think, that's the thing with Neville. He talks a lot about, he goes into religious stuff, and then he goes into, a lot of the language from that era. Now, there's so many
60s. That was totally.
Exactly.
Yeah, they would have tarred and feathered him had he not been using those terms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's good that you can kind of pick out, the feathers from the bones, and then just eat the meat that's left.
Right.
And
I think that's also good for the younger crowds that are coming in now, because a lot of those people have a stigma against religion, if you will. And so when the God word gets thrown around too much, it starts to freak them out a little bit. And then conversely, I think with some of the older crowd too, if you throw around universe and spirit and all that stuff, they get a little, you know. And so the words are kind of synonymous for anyone that's having a hard time with either of them. Use what's comfortable. Frankly, God or universe or Father or Creator or whatever you call this being, spirit, whatever, doesn't care what you call them.
No, and you know what's great is, Dan, whether you are Christian, Jewish, Muslim, black, white, gay, straight, whether you even have a tiny iota, you could be fully atheist. You can still manifest because it's belief based.
It doesn't.
That's what I love.
Universe doesn't care what you believe. It just cares what you're putting out there. Exactly. Well, it doesn't even care. That goes back to that opinion thing, frankly.
Yeah.
It gives you what you ask for.
It just gives you, and
chunk, right?
Yeah, ka-chung, ka-chung.
I love it.
That's what's so great is no one's excluded, and really, you don't even need to ask people what they believe. All you got to do is have a look at what they're living. It tells you.
Right. And really, you can probably talk to them for 5 or 10 minutes and quickly figure out, okay, well, you've got a lot of negative, you know, and you've got to just, what do you want? Just think about that. Stop worrying about all this other stuff. Just think about where you can go. Live in the end, which I think is key. That's one of the best things that I read so far out of all this. And I actually totally got that from the first video of yours that I watched.
Living in the
absolutely powerful. That is.
It is. And going back to what we were talking about, how do I live in the end? It's that thing of constantly saying to yourself, because it's that thing you say, okay, say you want the green BMW, and you go, okay, I haven't got it, but if I say to myself, oh, I love driving my green BMW and I can feel the steering wheel, then your head goes, you haven't got it yet. What are you doing? You haven't got it yet. But I've worked out, if you say to yourself, yeah, but wouldn't it be nice if you were in that car now? Your head can't argue with that.
Right, that's true.
So
that's the thing too, for those that are having a hard time seeing it or believing it. Go down and test drive a car. You got nothing to lose, and at least then you've got a real experience that you can say, yes, I can do this. I am in the car right now. And I totally agree, because it's that mind chatter that we have to learn to deal with, and that's really the parts that are slowing us down, if anything. I mean, it's in some cases dang near stopping us, but
and sometimes, you know, as Neville says, and this is the bit that he words really well, and we actually understand it in simple English. If you keep thinking of something, you can do that for 10 years and it will never, ever get you what you want. You have to start thinking from it. Now, how do you do that? Like you said, you go into the car, you test drive it. So when you leave the car yard, you go home, you go to bed, you close your eyes, and you remember the smell. You activate the controlled, vivid imagination, the eyes, how it smelt.
You remember where the radio's at, what it felt like to hold the wheel. I mean, the power pushing you back, and it becomes very real that when you're trying to imagine living in the end and driving this car around, you know exactly what it feels like to drive that car around.
Exactly. And that's how you live in the state of having.
And that phrase, I hadn't heard that yet, but that is beautiful. Thinking of something versus thinking from something. That's very profound and stated so simply.
Well, and that's a Neville thing that he always says you stand in the position of from. So you look back at yourself not having it. That's where you got to go.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
It's a different vantage point mentally.
So you're saying look back or look forward?
You're looking back. Okay. So what you got to do is, if you're thinking from having the car, you are literally in the car, driving the car, smelling the car, hearing the radio, feeling the leather seats. Now, when you are in that imaginal state, you think to yourself, you've got your eyes closed, you're in imagination, and you say, God, remember when I didn't have this car?
Okay. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So that's how, but it's weird because you got to not go back. You got to not go back to person without car.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Okay. That's kind of confusing in its own right, but it does make sense.
I know.
Time paradox.
This is the kind of Neville black belt next level of imagination. Yeah.
That is awesome. So, okay. Yeah. No,
do you want to go through it again? Does it make sense?
Please.
Okay.
If not just for me, probably for others, because I think that's a huge point.
No, it is. It's really good. Okay. So Neville talks about, with anything that you want, you've got to live from it and stop thinking of it. So when you're thinking of the car, you are here, the car's over there, across the street, and you're looking at the car with a gap in the middle of space. When you're thinking from having the car, you're in the car, you're looking out the driver window, back at where you used to be standing when you didn't have the car.
So it's important, you're saying, to remember from the vantage point of having it, to remember what it's like when you didn't have it.
Exactly. Which
actually helps build that appreciation, right? That's where that feeling starts to get even better, because you can sit in that place of having it in the end and imagine when you didn't have it. So thusly you can feel more appreciation for now. I think, but that seems like a neat little, I don't want to say mind game, but kind of.
The thing that you're doing, okay, I'm going to give you another example. If you are, say, on one side of the United States and you're trying to get across to the other side, if you say went by foot, how long would that take?
Forever.
Like 4 months?
Probably, sure.
Okay.
It's a lot, 3,000 miles. So
it's huge. Okay, it's huge. So let's say it takes 5 months, and you're walking every day for about 10 hours.
Right.
So you've got 2 points between one side of the US to the other side. So it takes that amount of space, takes you 5 months in time. Now, if you flew, how long would that take?
3 hours, 5 hours.
Okay, so what you're doing is you're collapsing space and you're collapsing time from 5 months down to 3 hours. So that principle of collapsing space and time is what you're doing when you're living from something. You're no longer seeing the gap in between. I'm here, the car's over there, I've got to get over to the car. You're actually in the car and you've totally forgotten being over there. So you've collapsed space and time through focus.
Okay, that I like that. And it's funny, as
that's
I'm,
more simple to kind of get your hands around.
And I'm like imagining Einstein high-fiving Stephen Hawking's right now, because I feel like you've just collapsed space and time in a very unique kind of way. But actually, that is the reality of it.
It is.
I think that's a great way to think about it and to help imagine it. And I think that's where so many of us get stuck in these blocks. Like you said, if I was trying to walk it, I couldn't do it quicker than I can do it. But I don't let that stop me. I don't let that be my thinking. I just do my 10 hours a day. And, journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And that's what this whole process is about, is beginning those steps, working on the doubts and the things that creep in. And like you said, trying to shrink that space and time between this thing that we perceive as not here to making it where it was more, it is here. And we're looking back to when it wasn't here, it's a very different mind shift. And I think a powerful way to look at that.
Yeah. And when I was in Sydney thinking, how am I going to get all the way to London and France? My thing was...
Walking was probably not part of it.
No. But it was collapsing in my head, the space and the time. And I was also collapsing beliefs around money.
Right.
So it was that thing of, okay, because I had this thing in my head, I was going to do it 4 times a year. Now, I did that last year. I did 4 trips in 1 year, and I fully paid for everything in advance because I didn't want to have the whole debt concept is no longer a thing for me.
Nice.
It's like debt exists because you don't believe you can create money, and credit cards exist because you believe you can't create money, and loans exist because you believe you can't create money. So I thought, I've got to get better at believing that I can create money for everything. So I thought, okay, I'm going to pay for these trips. I'm going to go 4 times. I'm going to collapse that space and time. And I had to do one, like you say, 1 step at a time. First trip, second trip, third trip, fourth trip, and then got to the end of the year and went, okay, I've done it. So it's applying the living from it. Because when I was in Sydney, I'd be laying in the bed in London or laying in my bed in France at my auntie's house. So I could easily access the images because I've already been there. The first trip was the hardest because I hadn't been there. So it was practicing. This is not hard. This is easy. It's only a 24-hour trip. I get there really fast. It's only it's 2 flights. It's 24 hours. It's not a big deal. So I've kind of brought it down to size and started living whichever bed I was in. I'd be thinking about the other bed I was going to go to. And then I'd be in that bed in imagination, bed number 2, looking back at bed number 1 and going, wow, I love this.
That is I love that look. And I think the other thing that's really cool for your listeners and probably mine too, it's the fact that these are like, we're real people too, we're through this stuff as well. We're just sharing what we've come to find as a reality. And as we've done it a little bit longer, we've become more comfortable and we're sort of expanding our horizons more and more and more. And, where you and I are going to be manifesting stuff in 10 years from now is going to be vastly different than where we are right now. Yes. So again, for a lot of the people that are newer into this, it's okay. Keep at it. We struggled early on too.
And we still struggle now.
Yeah. We still have our moments.
Yeah, we do. And I mean, I read Neville and I didn't do anything much for the first 3 years. I read it and went, oh, I love that. I love that. I love that. But my life was still completely stuffed in pretty much every area.
Right.
And then it was like, okay, now I've read it and I've read it and I've read it and I've understood it. Now let's put in the practical. And, in every book, he repeats similar things. Live in the wish fulfilled. Live from it. Don't think of it. And how to live in the end. And he would give examples and he repeats and he repeats and he repeats. So you get lots of the same information from different angles, from different stories, especially in the law and the promise, because it's all different people's stories. So you get, and that's what I love too, because you're not getting here's the really smart person telling the student how to do this.
Right.
You've got ordinary people, like you said, just like you and I, that are probably dead now because that book was written a long time ago, but they gave the story step by step what they did, and they're still teaching us through those stories.
And the cool part too in that regard is that stuff wasn't as common back then as it is now. There's like zillions of books now. I mean, they're all over the place. Everyone's talking about it.
Yeah.
But back then, that was like taboo. Like
it's accepted now.
Yeah, that was like dark arts, man. But nowadays, that's very common. So I agree. Exactly. I think it's a lot easier today. I think the world supports it more, which I think also helps from an energetic standpoint. But yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people are, waking up at their own time, coming to terms with this realization that we are in charge of our lives. And that's one thing that I know here in the States, they program the crud out of it in us that you're not in charge and that you need to come and get this thing. It's going to make you a better person. If you buy these new Nike shoes, you'll be able to run faster than everyone else. And it's really stepping back from a lot of that programming and saying, no, like, first off, I'm fine as I am. And I can start to build my life in the image I wish for, not the image that everybody else thinks I should have. So I think it's really the first moment when people grab hold of the reins of their own life and really start to drive their life is a very empowering moment. And then from there, you just start to grow and you start to manifest all sorts of cool things. But you're not going to jump from making $20 an hour to $100 an hour in a few weeks. It's just not likely going to happen that way. You could, like you said, it definitely can. You could win the lottery too and suddenly become a multimillionaire. I mean, these things do happen, but for the majority of us, you'll build.
You'll build. Yeah, and it's still moving. It's still moving. Yeah. So you start
far
feeling.
From done, that's for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, what the fact is, you get to actually interact with the world in such a different way when you actually see that you're pre-paving everything through what you're launching and projecting out. I mean, everybody goes law of attraction, but really it's law of projection first. Law of attraction is a secondary thing.
Yeah, and that's where, like I said, I think Neville Goddard has just nailed it with